If you're watching the Warriors-Memphis game, cameras caught Klay Thompson on the bench after the Warriors had pretty much given up on that game. I don't know who he was signaling to. Looked like he was looking down to the other bench, so it's not crazy to think it would have been Dillon Brooks.
It could have been fans. It could have been anybody. I mean, that place is pretty edgy.
Exactly. So if you've ever seen the Kobe Bryant meme where Kobe Bryant's sitting on the bench and he goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, meaning he's won 5 rings. Klay did one of those when the Warriors were down big in the fourth quarter. Somebody was letting him hear it, and he just went 1, 2, 3, 4.
Number 4.
And I didn't think a lot of it, and I tend to think of Warrior fans as unbelievably supportive. So I figured, okay, Warrior fans are probably thinking, good for Klay, who's Memphis. But you were kind of saying,
I think it's more split than you're giving it credit for.
Okay, so you think some Warrior fans are like, you know what, Klay, enough with that.
Yeah, like it's just out of pocket at this point where you've been an embarrassment this season on the road to just keep going to that card, to keep going to and look, it's one the Warriors always will have in their back pocket and you can always go to, but it's like, no, why don't you just play better? Why don't you just beat this team this season as opposed to worrying about the stuff that you used to do as far as that carrying you through. But it's in some ways it's indicative of what the Warriors have become this season. It's kind of their whole season in a nutshell, in the sense that this team this year is not good enough, but yet why do they get the benefit of the doubt? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, like that's the only reason this team does get the benefit of the doubt. So it does, in a fun way, go hand in hand. Personally, I don't care what Klay does, but if you're a Warrior fan and you're thinking, hey, dude, like we're getting our ass kicked, what are you doing? I totally get it at this point. So others would say, you know what? No, forget that. Dillon Brooks shouldn't be running his mouth saying that he's got real estate out here in the Bay, basically in the Warriors' heads. And then Klay, I mean, God, he fired back in a big way off of that. How about this from Klay Thompson on Dillon Brooks? When he retires, I don't think anyone will ever talk about Dillon Brooks ever again. I promise you. It's sweet right now, but wait 10 years.
Well, in 10 years, somebody will be able to say, remember that game Dillon Brooks was really good and they beat the Warriors?
Exactly. To your point, nobody will remember that.
That's right. But
which you
the
say
bottom
that all
line
the time.
is Dillon Brooks was the second best player on the floor on Saturday night.
And Klay was the worst player on the floor.
415 says the difference with Kobe was he was injured and not playing in that game. Klay's being a sore loser and trying to cope after having another bad road game. That's from the 415. There's something, I mean, there's just, to me, so much going. First of all, Klay and Draymond have been playing that game all year. The leaning on the 4 rings, the leaning on the past. And apparently, the one thing Dillon Brooks does is he doesn't, he just doesn't feel like he's got to give in to the Warriors just because they're champions.
He's fine playing the heel.
Right.
And he's fine with the flack that comes with being on a team that hasn't done squat and being the heel. He's just comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Whatever. That's fine. If that's the role that he wants to play, know that if these two teams play in the playoffs and the Warriors win again, which is still a possible outcome for this season, regardless of what you think of whether the Warriors can win a title or not, the Warriors and Grizzlies could very well play each other in the first round. And if the Warriors win that series, look out, Dillon Brooks. Like, that would be enough for a guy like me to be like, you know what, I'm going to tone it down against these guys because we may have to play him again, and I sure as hell don't want to lose to him again and have to deal with, exponentially more flack coming back my way. But not Dillon Brooks. Dillon Brooks is head first, man. Let's go. Bring it. I'll take it. They, as they say in Memphis, they want the smoke.
510. Count them up, Steiny. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Take that for data.
You are right, 510. You are right. 510, stop it. If you're saying they can't use 4 rings, you're definitely a new age Warrior fan. 4 is not an easy feat. So, yeah, you can flaunt it all you want, hate on it, but if you want to shut them up, then surpass them. He was talking to Dillon Brooks. Yes, he was talking to Dillon Brooks. We'll get into more. We'll play some of that sound after 10:30 because it is pretty interesting. But I mean, Klay's just not the same player. And I don't know why people insist on thinking or saying he is. I mean, last year he played 32 regular season games and played in the postseason, and the Golden State Warriors won a title, JD, and he was a part of it. Like, he was every bit as much a part of it as Steph and Draymond. Like, he wants to talk about 10 years from now. Like, nobody's going to say, well, the fourth Warriors title, remember, Klay was just, he was coming up. No, he earned that title. Like, he was part of it. I think he feels disrespected, like people say he wasn't a part of the title kind of last year, and which is ludicrous to me because they don't win it without him either last year. But I guess what I'm getting at, JD, is he's still, and maybe that's why he's great, he's still out there trying to prove something. And the bottom line is he's not going to be able to prove what he proved 5 years ago or 19 because he's not that same player.
The problem with Klay Thompson is he's either been spectacular or terrible for the most part in games this season. Like, he spent the better part of the first 2 months being mostly terrible. He's been pretty great over about a 2-month span, but lately it's been split. Lately it's been home games he's been really good, road games he's been kind of terrible, but it's the high highs and the low lows, and I think that's the problem as to why this Warriors team can't win with any consistency, is because the nights where Klay is bad, he is so bad that it really hurts you. You know, and you need the nights where he's great to help you win, but it just, you're kind of getting both ends of a really wide spectrum as far as his play, and I feel like that's been the case for the Warriors overall as a whole, as a team this season.
Yeah, and you bring up his streaky shooting, and I'm going to go look at some numbers during this break. But you know, if a guy's shooting 40% from 3-point range, which is what Klay's shooting, you know, it doesn't mean he's making 2 out of 5 every game. It means he can go 12 for 16 from 3, but then have 2 or 3 bad shooting nights in a row from 3.
Well, it hasn't been a good trip.
About.
It hasn't been a good road trip. 2 of 9, 2 of 7, 3 of 8 from 3. Overall, though, 6 of 17, 6 of 14, 6 of 16. So he's been 35, 43, 37 in the games on the road, just overall shooting. You go back on the homestand, and it was a lot better than that. I mean, he 8 threes, 4 of 9 from 3. But you go back on the road, the last time they were in Memphis, 6 of 14. At OKC, 5 of 13 from 3. At the Lakers, 8 of 18 overall shooting the ball. So it's been the last month or so. Then he has the 27-point game against the Pelicans back at home. It's been a lot more hit or miss for Klay Thompson really since the All-Star break. He's been pretty bad on the road, and he's been pretty spectacular at home, and we're essentially a month now removed from that post-All-Star break portion of the schedule.
And, I'm just looking at his big games. He had a 41-point night against Houston on the road. He was 10 for 13
in November.
From 3-point range, yes.
When he was terrible every other night.
Then he had 54 against Atlanta. But he was 21 for 39, 10 for 21. Those are good numbers, don't get me wrong. But high-volume numbers, 8 for 15. And then, of course, he was 12 for 17 against Houston at home. What I'm getting at is if you take out, and he's always had big nights, but you take out the big nights this year, his 3-point percentage is much lower than in years past.
Yeah, the lows are lower.
Much lower. And the defense is not as good either.
And his shots, when they don't go in, are like shot turnovers because they're quick shots, they're heat check shots, they're shots that really Steph and Klay are the only two, or among the only two that get to take with the regularity that they do, and I think they hurt an already mediocre to bad defense on the road become even worse.